Brian Staffer didn't even lower his voice when he murmured, "You're cleaning here during boarding hours?" It wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. Authority carried the weight. At first, Ruth Faye thought it was a mistake, the kind of casual correction people made when they assumed familiarity, the kind that expected a quick apology and immediate compliance. Then she noticed the pause afterward, not confusion, not clarification, expectation, the unspoken assumption that his title alone was supposed to end the exchange. What Brian didn't realize was that the woman standing in front of him was already logging the moment, not emotionally, but procedurally. "Move the cart," he snapped, stepping closer. The shift was deliberate. His clipboard tapped once against his palm, sharp and rhythmic. A procedural cue meant as much for witnesses as for her. Around them, the ambient hum of Concourse F dipped just slightly. Not silence, attention. Phones lifted halfway, undecided. Eyes slid sideways, measuring whether this was harmless correction or something heavier. Ruth didn't respond. She adjusted her grip on the handle. That was all. Brian mistook silence for compliance. He straightened and raised his voice just enough to travel. "This area is for staff who know what they're doing." The jab landed publicly now. The crowd felt it before they processed it. A few passengers stiffened. One woman near the gate pretended to recheck her boarding pass, listening harder than she meant to. Ruth stayed still. Every word, every pause, every procedural overreach. Data. Brian leaned in, disbelief curling his tone as he sneered. "Do you even understand the schedule?" That was the tell, not the insult, the assumption behind it. That explanation flowed in only one direction. That correction never required consent. Behind the glass walls, a junior operations clerk slowed his walk. 2 gates down, a pilot glanced over and didn't look away. No one intervened. They didn't need to. The imbalance was already documented in the room. Then Brian crossed the line. He slammed the clipboard shut and shredded the moment in front of everyone. "This is basic. I don't have time for incompetence." The concourse went quiet, not silent, but stunned. This wasn't correction anymore. It was performance. Ruth finally lifted her eyes. Not angry, not surprised, focused. Her gaze swept exits, cameras, witness angles. She cataloged posture, tone, proximity, everything that would matter later. Nothing personal. Everything calculated. Observation complete. What Brian still didn't realize was that the woman he was posturing over wasn't trapped in the moment. She was mapping the system around it. And someone else, unnoticed, unremarkable, was already recording timestamps, authority codes, escalation markers. If you've ever felt your stomach tighten watching power get misused in plain sight, sit with that feeling. Don't scroll past it. The energy shifted, almost imperceptibly. Passengers felt it before they understood it. A quiet question settled into the space, heavy and unresolved. What happens when authority humiliates the wrong person in public? Brian exhaled, satisfied. Ruth didn't move, and somewhere in the system, something irreversible had just begun turning. Brian followed her down the concourse, loud enough to be felt even before it was fully heard. Concourse F carried the sound forward. Shoes scuffed, wheels rolled, screens blinked, and behind it all, his voice rose with purpose, cutting through movement as if the space itself belonged to him. He walked close, close enough for others to hear, close enough for posture to become pressure. He called out rules that did not apply, and leaned on titles that did not give him the right. Each word was aimed not just at her, but at everyone watching. "This isn't your station," he said again, louder now, letting protocol do work it was never meant to do. She did not turn. She did not slow. She logged the moment. Every step he took was measured. Every emphasis was noted. The way he squared his shoulders, the way he raised his chin when people looked, the way his confidence fed on attention. She tracked it all, calm and exact, as if she were reading a chart instead of standing inside a public confrontation. Around them, the crowd adjusted. A man stepped aside too quickly. A woman checked her phone without reading it. Someone lifted a camera just enough to pretend they were not recording. If you have ever watched authority stretch past its limits and felt your stomach tighten, like this video, because that feeling is not imaginary. He kept going. He corrected her path without knowing where she was headed. He explained procedures she had helped design. He spoke as if repetition would turn assumption into fact. The imbalance was no longer subtle, it was staged. She noticed the cracks first, a pause before his next sentence, a glance to see who was watching, a breath taken too deep. Confidence does not breathe like that when it is secure. She marked the shift and kept moving. People felt it before they understood it. The tension did not come from shouting. It came from certainty being questioned in real time. If moments like this matter to you, moments where silence becomes strategy, hit the subscribe button and turn on your notification bell so you do not miss what happens next. Her strategy stayed internal. She let the humiliation stack. She let the errors pile up. Every wrong correction became proof. Every raised voice became record. Every witness became part of the system now watching itself. He did not notice the change. He thought control was still his. Cameras were higher now. Not obvious, just enough. Perception was shifting, quietly, without permission. If you have ever seen power overplay its hand, let us hear your views. Comment in the comment section, because silence is how this survives. She walked on. Behind her, authority followed, and the distance between performance and consequence was closing fast. The noise faded the moment Ruth stepped into the quiet edge of gate F11. Here, the terminal softened. Screens hummed lower. Footsteps thinned. Brian's voice no longer filled the air, but its echo still pressed against her focus. Ruth paused beside an unused seating row and let her breathing settle, not because she was shaken, but because this was where she always recalibrated. She reviewed records the way others reviewed memories, employee files, policy revisions, complaint trails that stopped just short of accountability. Faces blurred, patterns did not, dismissals resurfaced, promotions quietly redirected, compliments that came wrapped around limits, each moment stacked neatly, one on top of another, forming a timeline she had carried for years. Calm had never come naturally to Ruth. It had been trained into her through repetition, through being talked over and smiled at in the same breath, through learning when silence protected her and when it sharpened her edge. If you have ever had to learn calm the hard way, like this video, because survival should not require mastery of restraint. She remembered her early years in uniform, the way instructions were repeated to her, but not to others, the way competence was always questioned one step sooner. Later came the boardrooms, the side doors, the meetings she was invited to only after decisions were already made. Each slight was small enough to dismiss alone. Together, they told the truth. Ruth's path had been deliberate. She had not risen loudly. She had moved quietly. 2 years earlier, while others watched headlines, she had acquired control without spectacle. No press, no announcement. Just paperwork, patience, and time. Power did not need noise when it was certain. Her strategy had always been simple. Anticipate, plan, document, repeat. The people who underestimated her never realized they were writing their own records. Brian was doing the same thing now. If stories like this matter to you, hit the subscribe button and turn on your notification bell so you can follow what happens when patterns finally surface. Around her, passengers laughed softly. A child dragged a backpack across the floor. Life moved forward unaware. The system rarely noticed itself while operating. That was its weakness. Ruth watched Brian from a distance as he paced, still performing authority for anyone willing to look. His arrogance demanded attention. Hers required none. If you have ever seen confidence confuse volume for power, let us hear your views. Comment in the comment section, because these moments do not disappear on their own. She knew this humiliation could become leverage, not because she wanted it to, but because systems expose themselves when pressure is applied in public. And if this story reminds you of someone who needs to see how power really works, share this video, tag someone who can or need to. Ruth stood, steady and prepared. What she did next would decide whether observation stayed quiet or finally turned the system inward on itself. The hum of the baggage carousel was punctuated by Brian's voice, sharp and insistent, cutting through the usual terminal chatter. Each time he repeated instructions, each minor correction aimed at a procedural slip, his confidence grew. Ruth watched without flinching, cataloging each overstep, each micro-mistake. Passengers lifted phones quietly, the soft click of recording beginning to punctuate the rhythm of authority he tried to enforce. Whispers spread. Eyes darted, shifting between curiosity and unease. No one knew fully what was unfolding, but they felt it. If you have ever witnessed unchecked authority falter, like this video, because noticing matters. Brian's stance betrayed him. The angle of his feet, the tightening of his shoulders when he noticed the audience watching, the slight stammer when repeating policy, all recorded. Each pause, each misquote, each small hesitation accumulated. Invisible threads that Ruth pulled together silently. Her calm was deliberate, each breath measured, every eye movement catalogued, a contrast to Brian's swelling arrogance. Hit the subscribe button and turn on your notification bell to follow how patience can expose patterns that arrogance cannot hide. Microreactions built a rhythm of tension. A clerk adjusted files while pretending to focus elsewhere. A coworker shifted a step closer to observe. Even the smallest gestures became data points. Ruth logged every glance, every twitch, integrating them into a larger mental map. Nothing was wasted, nothing unnoticed. Passengers sensed friction without understanding its depth. They were audience, witnesses, but also carriers of accountability, whether they knew it or not. Let us hear your views. Comment in the comment section if you've ever watched power trip over itself in public. Repeated denials of Ruth's legitimacy reinforced the system's tilt, yet also reinforced her strategy. Each assertion by Brian, each correction issued in authority, stacked against him, creating an invisible ledger of evidence. Ruth remained composed. Her patience radiated. Observers began to question the imbalance, though the full scope of her control remained hidden. Small signs indicated a shift. Whispers rippled. Posture stiffened. Hesitant glances multiplied. The audience was sensing something, yet only Ruth and the quiet allies around her understood the stakes. Share this video. Tag someone who can or need to, because moments like these reveal how silence and observation can become tools of justice. The stage was set. Micro mistakes had mounted into strategy. Tension thickened. Nothing had exploded yet, but the foundation for a decisive shift was complete. The audience felt it. Brian did not. The moment before the storm lingered. The corner of Concourse F was quiet, but the air thrummed with unseen tension as Ruth leaned over documents, tracing lines of authority and accountability. Contracts, employee records, and performance files spread before her like a map of systemic gaps. Each page, each annotation, told a story of assumptions and overlooked power. Allies nodded silently, confirming details with subtle gestures. Every movement, every whispered affirmation, reinforced a plan that was precise and irreversible. Like this video if you understand that quiet observation can hold more power than public noise. Files revealed cracks Brian could not see. Procedural errors, overlooked responsibilities, the small privileges assumed by his role, all became points of leverage. Ruth's presence in plain sight allowed her to cultivate witnesses who would validate every misstep. Her strategy was invisible, yet its weight pressed on the room like an unspoken law. The tension shifted from frustration to strategic inevitability. Hit the subscribe button and turn on your notification bell to follow how preparation transforms moments of oppression into tools of accountability. Brian moved through the concourse, barking orders and asserting dominance, unaware that each verbal jab only strengthened Ruth's position. He saw performance, but not precision. Each attempt to humiliate, each display of authority was catalogued and mapped. Her ledger of observation grew. Micro-reactions, hesitant glances, and the faintest hesitations were integrated into a procedural arsenal, ready to deploy at the perfect moment. Let us hear your views. Comment in the comment section if you have ever watched someone quietly build power while others assumed weakness. Silent witnesses watched without drawing attention. Staff adjusted files, employees moved subtly. Passengers glanced toward the unfolding tension, sensing an imbalance. Ruth's strategy relied on timing, patience, and accumulation. Every detail mattered. The angle of a clipboard, the tap of a foot, the micro pauses in conversation. They were all pieces of the same mechanism, and it was ready. Share this video. Tag someone who can or need to see how meticulous observation can shift authority without confrontation. The countermove was prepared. Every step precise, every ally aligned. The storm was invisible, but inevitable. Brian had no idea the foundation was complete. The next move would define the moment. Observation had reached its tipping point. Strategy waited. The room held its breath. Though no one fully understood why, the concourse held its breath as Ruth stepped forward, calm and deliberate, her presence shifting the invisible weight of authority. She referenced internal policies, airline protocols, and ownership documentation with quiet precision. Each citation, each highlighted inconsistency, chipped away at Brian's dominance. His confident posture faltered slightly, fingers tightening around the clipboard. Passengers sensed the shift, eyes widening as they recorded and whispered. Like this video if you can feel how observation and preparation can quietly reverse power. Brian's public authority began to unravel. Micro-errors, long ignored, were now exposed under Ruth's controlled scrutiny. Every gesture, every attempt to maintain command, only emphasized the cracks forming in his once unquestioned control. Smartphones captured the scene. Staff exchanged knowing glances, and murmurs rippled through the crowd. Ruth stayed composed, letting the evidence speak louder than words. Hit the subscribe button and turn on your notification bell to witness how calm strategy overtakes unchecked aggression. The shift was subtle, yet undeniable. Observers, employees, passengers, even media staff noticed the first tremors in Brian's confidence. The maid no longer fit the role imposed on her. She was orchestrating the moment, commanding the room without raising her voice. Each calculated pause, each document presented at the right time, reinforced the new hierarchy. Let us hear your views. Comment in the comment section on moments when silent preparation can outweigh public spectacle. Brian's attempts to reassert control became more pronounced and erratic. Every misstatement, every hesitation was catalogued, magnified by the audience, who could now see the imbalance clearly. Ruth's precision ensured that the narrative remained hers. The tide had turned. She controlled perception. Staff who had watched passively were now witnesses to his unraveling authority. Share this video. Tag someone who can or need to see how procedural knowledge and timing can transform public humiliation into strategic leverage. The countermeasure was complete. Every ally positioned, every procedural point documented and displayed. The room registered the invisible flip of power. Ruth remained calm, but the energy shifted around her. The audience sensed it. Brian did not yet fully grasp the reversal. The question lingered. Would he recognize the tide before it was too late? The plaza fell silent as Ruth stepped forward, composed, her presence commanding more attention than Brian ever had. Logs, recordings, and internal records lay before her, a meticulous map of every misstep and overreach. The evidence was irrefutable. Observers, staff, passengers, and even media absorbed the details silently. The subtle cracks in Brian's authority widened under the scrutiny, his confidence faltering with each documented inconsistency. Like this video if you understand how calm strategy can dismantle unchecked power. Systemic patterns revealed themselves in real time. Arrogance amplified by protocol, authority wielded without accountability, and dismissiveness that had gone unquestioned for too long. Ruth's identity, once invisible behind her professional composure, now reshaped perception instantly. She was no longer the background figure. She was the orchestrator, the unseen hand that had quietly observed, documented, and now exposed. Hit the subscribe button and turn on your notification bell to follow stories where preparation and patience overturn systemic imbalance. Whispers spread through the crowd. Phones captured every motion, every procedural discrepancy, every reaction from staff and passengers alike. Eyes shifted, and nods of acknowledgement passed quietly among those who had witnessed the subtle accumulation of evidence. Ruth's calm reinforced the narrative. Her strategic patience had become visible authority. Let us hear your views. Comment in the comment section about times you've seen quiet preparation defeat public spectacle. Brian's attempts to regain control became more pronounced, each gesture betraying growing unease. He corrected his tone, repeated instructions, tried to assert dominance, yet the audience no longer deferred to him. Every move only highlighted the imbalance. Ruth's internal ledger had become a public story, and the room absorbed it. Share this video. Tag someone who can or need to see how silent observation and careful documentation can transform public humiliation into systemic accountability. By now, systemic injustice was on display, unmistakable. Patterns of bias and unchecked authority revealed themselves without a word from Ruth beyond the facts. Observers began connecting the dots themselves. She did not need to raise her voice. She did not need to dramatize. The presence of evidence, the subtle choreography of timing, and the awareness of witnesses accomplished the shift. The power balance had been reversed silently, elegantly. The plaza's energy shifted, imperceptible to some, undeniable to those paying attention. Brian's public image wavered under the weight of truth. The crowd's perception of him had changed irrevocably. The question lingered. Could Brian recover from this exposure, or would the public forever see him as the antagonist he had proven himself to be? The answer remained suspended. As tension and awareness coalesced in the plaza, the authority that once seemed unshakable wavered as Ruth watched silently from the rear of the concourse. Systems faltered under exposure. Internal documents laid bare procedural gaps that Brian had long exploited to assert control. Staff who had previously deferred to him now kept distance, their movements cautious, their attention subtly redirected. The balance of power had shifted. What had been personal humiliation became structural change, a recalibration of compliance around new boundaries Ruth had quietly defined. Like this video if you believe in accountability over corruption. Brian's posture tightened. With each misstep, he realized he could no longer mask. His attempts to assert authority, once commanding, now rang hollow against the growing awareness of observers. Smartphones lifted instinctively, capturing details that Ruth had already cataloged mentally. The systemic cracks he had ignored were now visible, undeniable. The ripple effect began moving beyond immediate witnesses, reaching those who had influence, yet had remained silent until now. Hit the subscribe button and turn on your notification bell to follow stories where patience and strategy topple unchecked authority. Ruth's gaze swept the concourse. Every clerk, every staff member, every passenger who had witnessed Brian's arrogance became part of the evolving narrative. Microactions, adjusting papers, subtle nods, redirected attention, served as confirmation of the shift. Each documented inconsistency strengthened the momentum. The audience, now aware of the imbalance, observed a silent collapse taking shape in real time. Let us hear your views. Comment in the comments section about times you've seen systems bend under exposure and accountability. Procedures began to realign without confrontation. Compliance naturally tightened. The hum of the terminal had changed. Weeks later, policies were adjusted, and documentation was strictly enforced. Training sessions reinforced new procedures. Staff moved with awareness, their actions informed by what had unfolded weeks before. Ruth remained a quiet presence, mentoring allies in procedural strategy without fanfare, ensuring each step was precise, each action intentional. Hit the subscribe button and turn on your notification bell to witness more stories of strategic change and systemic accountability. The ripple effect spread beyond the terminal. Passengers and staff alike began to recognize patterns of overreach and procedural gaps, replicating Ruth's silent methodology. Media coverage amplified the story, framing it as a blueprint for resilience, a demonstration of how observation, strategy, and patience could reclaim systems from unchecked authority. Smartphones and cameras captured more than the spectacle. They recorded lessons in control, calm, and measured influence. Let us hear your views. Comment in the comments section about times you've seen individuals quietly shift systems through strategy. Ruth's calm presence contrasted with the remnants of Brian's authority, now diminished and fragmented. Each day, systemic adjustments became more ingrained, less dependent on her direct intervention. Allies executed procedures with confidence, replicating the observations and cataloging that had previously been Ruth's silent work. But quiet mentorship shaped the environment, turning witnesses into participants in ongoing accountability. Share this video. Dusk settled over Concourse F, painting long shadows across polished floors. Ruth scanned the terminal quietly, her presence unassuming yet commanding. Weeks of procedural adjustments and staff retraining had begun to reshape the space. Policies were enforced consistently. Allies moved with awareness, subtly reinforcing each change Ruth had introduced. Hit the subscribe button and turn on your notification bell to stay updated on stories where strategy transforms systems. The hum of conversation carried new weight. Passengers and staff no longer assumed authority would go unchecked. Smartphones lifted more deliberately, recording minor deviations that once passed unnoticed. Ruth's watchful eyes cataloged these moments, ensuring lessons were embedded and accountability extended beyond immediate events. Like this video if you believe small actions can drive systemic change. Near the rear concourse, subtle reminders of transformation were everywhere. Markers on service counters, updated signage, and quietly implemented workflow changes reflected the invisible hand of oversight. Each object told a story of progress, reinforcing that vigilance and strategy had reshaped not just interactions, but the culture itself. Let us hear your views. Comment in the comment section about times you've seen systems recalibrated by careful observation and persistence. Ruth paused briefly, reflecting. Could these adjustments endure? How many staff and bystanders would carry the memory of accountability forward? Her calm was not complacent, it was deliberate. Observation never rested. Each anomaly, each procedural gap became data for future action. Share this video. Tag someone who can or need to see how systems bend under oversight. The city beyond the terminal continued its rhythm, unaware of the subtle shifts within. Notifications pinged, alerts of new procedural errors, potential overreach, and ongoing systemic issues. Ruth's strategy extended outward, unseen yet influential, a network of silent witnesses ready to validate and enforce standards. Subscribe to Black Stories Uncut for more stories of people fixing broken systems. Ruth's reflection extended beyond the airport walls. Justice, she realized, was never a spectator sport. Observation, strategy, and courage were essential. Each moment of power misused elsewhere could become a blueprint for accountability if documented and acted upon. Comment below. Have you or someone you know faced legal system injustice? Your voice matters. Even as the terminal quieted for the evening, the energy remained charged. Authority missteps were no longer hidden, and systems responded with resilience. Ruth's influence radiated subtly, expanding in reach. The public, staff, and media were now active participants in a system-wide recalibration. Observation never rests, systemic vigilance continues. Another day would bring new challenges, and like Ruth, we should be ready. Next week, we're bringing another incredible story. Justice isn't a spectator sport, it's a calling. The night closed in, but the narrative, the lessons, and the momentum of accountability carried forward, silent yet unstoppable, leaving viewers waiting, reflecting, and ready to